Hello, our lovely Girl Awakening listeners. Welcome to 2023. I'm Jo Hendy from the Sacred Sister Project.
I'm Amanda Parker of Mayala Organics.
Come with us as we journey into this week's Awakening episode.
I talk to a spirit. She comes.
Hello, Amanda. Happy Wednesday.
Oh, hi, Jo. So beautiful to be here on our favourite day of the week.
Our favourite day. And like always, another incredible gift and a local girl.
Yes.
Yay. We
Yes.
love the locals. We do have a lot of local listeners too, which is good because then they can tap into the beautiful gift of our guests.
Oh, and
what they have.
And sometimes it's amazing the little messages that we get from people, how they've had an experience with one of our guests.
Yes.
And the connections with that they have with the person.
Yes.
And that's always just such a great feeling to get that feedback from our listeners too. Love that.
Absolutely. And that's what we're always chasing, is to be able to just have one, even if it's one listener, say this has changed my life or this has done something for me or it's helped me.
It's resonated.
Yeah.
Thank you for that time that you take to connect. But anyway, we're going to dive in today with our guest today, Kobi. Kobi Winsbury is an energetic healer based on the Gold Coast, as we've mentioned.
Yep.
Kobi holds her sessions both in person and online, which I think is fantastic to be able to have both of those. As a qualified shamanic practitioner, Kobi helps her clients to connect to the core source of what is blocking them, so she can energetically clear it and allow them to reconnect to their higher self, awakening to deep transformation and change. That feels, you can
Beautiful.
feel that.
Resonating.
Kobi is passionate about helping others to heal relationship wounding, as trauma from past relationships causes damage to the soul, holding one back from finding the new and moving forward in their life. Kobi works with her clients to heal these wounds, allowing them to let go of the past and bring in the abundance they truly deserve. Welcome, Kobi. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so beautiful having you. And all of those things I think will resonate so much with all of our listeners.
Yeah.
The trauma of relationship breakup.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the biggest things of all, isn't it?
It
really
is. It is. It's one of the biggest ones that I see, the damage of breaking off part of the soul and sort of losing of soul fragments, for sure.
Because we give ourselves away, don't we?
We do.
If we're not wise enough to be able to hold the space.
It's certainly been a big part of my lessons in life and relationships.
I think they're all of ours.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like we've had a lot of women come in that have, and part of their journey is through that, the break in the relationship where they've gone, this is no longer resonating with me or it's not working for me or whatever. And they need to make that shift.
And that's often the hardest part, is just making the decision to even step away or realizing this is no longer serving me or my highest good.
Wow, that's a big one.
And there's that thing too, which I think probably is a common vibe of not wanting to carry forward into the next relationship what they're leaving behind, or hoping to leave behind, and move forward from.
Yeah, which will, that's a big conversation.
Yeah.
Without even asking you the big question. So we're going to ask the big question, and then if we have time at the end, we can go more into that, because I know it's for our listeners. I'm sure there'll be many people going, huh? Yes. So thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I must have a little bit nervous sitting in the hot seat here.
Yeah, well, that just, nerves are good.
Yeah.
Gets the fire burning, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, Kobi, how did your awakening begin?
Oh, well, as I'm sure many women have said that have sat in this seat, is there's been many awakenings along the journey.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest turning point was actually when I got really sick out of nowhere. Well, I should say it's always been within me, the spiritual and the connection. I've always been open to things like psychics and really interested more in what's out there and what is part of the bigger world. And I remember when I was over the years ago, psychics saying to me, you're going to be a psychic, or you're going to be a card reader, or you're going to be this. And I went, I don't believe you. There's no way I can foresee this ever happening. And I had this real stigma actually around being a psychic or being called a psychic.
Yeah.
But then, I got really, really sick, and it was during the early part, around the 2020 period when we all know what was happening then. And,
Yes.
It's a great way to call it, yes. And I just became down really unwell, and I was, fighting it, going on with life, and it just progressively got worse and worse to the point, and it wasn't a time where you could just go in and see the doctor either. So it was all the telehealth and all the things going on, and of course we made sure it wasn't that to start with. But then it got to the point, and this is what I think we do as women too, we sort of just put on our backpack and carry on instead of like stopping and being like, I'm sick, allowing in that support. Yeah. And that was a big lesson in this for me. And I remember ringing my doctor and going, I can't walk. I'm at the point where I can't get up. And she's like, Kobi, it's time to call the ambulance. And I went, I didn't want to do that, but I had no choice. Wow. And I was actually randomly, the universe guided this, where I was sharing with a friend, because I was like, I'm too old to share these days. Yes. But at this point, it lined me up to share with a friend when I came back during COVID and had nowhere to, like, I was in between houses. So I'm like, I'll just stay with a friend and see what happens with my job. Now I see why. Because I became, so the ambulance came, and lucky they did, because by the time we got to the hospital and I was in emergency, things went dire pretty quick. Wow. And I'd actually gone into sepsis and I hadn't realized. So it was bad. Like, I was so dehydrated, they couldn't get a line in anywhere. They worked all the way up to the head of emergency, and he had to do it with the ultrasound, and they still struggled. It's still traumatic. Yes. I've done a lot of theta around it, but it's still very traumatic. Yeah. So anyway, it ended up being, I spent quite a lot of time in hospital. I was in hospital for over a month, and it took a lot of tests and things. But what they found was I had an abscess form in my liver. Oh, wow. And the way that had come about was from a bacterial infection that had gotten into my blood. And apparently that's quite common, that it can get into your blood, and then it usually picks an organ to go and form something like this. And of course, I didn't even know the liver was that big. Like, I always thought it was this little bit. It's the whole top of your abdomen area. Anyway, so it had formed in there. It went to the point where I went into a coma from the sepsis, all sorts of things. Wow. So I'd been in there. They switched me between hospitals during that. It was a very crazy period. But I remember when I was coming out and I was in the point of sitting in the hospital bed day in, day out. I was more with it, still full of some drugs. Yeah. But no one could come and visit me. I was truly on my own, because the hospitals all locked down. The day after I went in they put a drain into the side of me to try and drain the liver. Anyhow, so I remember sitting there and thinking and feeling sick to my stomach of all the things that I had been doing in my life. Yeah. It was this moment of like, I went through a period before this where I was going out all the time. I was drinking every weekend. I was looking for something, but I didn't know what that was. Yeah. I was looking for validation in men for myself instead of looking for that within me. Yeah. And all of that started flooding up when I was sitting in this bed of like feeling just disgusting in the decisions and the life that I was living. And my life wasn't that bad. I was just like every other, girl. Single girl around that period. Yeah, I would have been in my early 30s. Yeah, yeah. And, so I was just living a normal life, working my job, going out having fun with friends on the weekend. But I'd also surrounded myself with people who weren't for my greatest good. And there's nothing against them or anything like that. I have nothing but love and kindness for that period of my life as well. But I realized that I was no longer aligned with that. And that's what came out of that. And that was kind of my turning point. And there was a whole journey out of that from with the hospital. And after a month or so of being there, I went, I can't do this anymore. And they wanted to keep me there and keep watching because they couldn't work out what had done it. Yeah, and they want to cover their bum. And I was like, then they went to put me in a shed room, and I went, I'm out, I'm done, let me out of here. And I said to them, this is actually affecting my mental health now. You need to let me out. And it was the best thing I did, because I actually they did what's called hospital from the home, which is amazing. And I say they send a nurse out to you every day. So I had a PICC line in my arm, which was feeding the strongest antibiotics you can get into my body 24/7. I had to wear a bum bag with it all in, and it was crazy. But I healed so much faster being in my own space. Well, they say that, don't they? Yeah. When you're in your own environment, you don't have people coming and open, because the hospital's...
It's alive 24/7.
Yeah, 24/7.
You don't really get to sleep.
You don't get to rest and heal. So at home, at least you can do that.
Yeah, and being around other people, it was so isolating. Yes. Day in and day out. you know, and I just didn't even want to get out of bed and walk. Whereas when you're at home, you have to. And I'm actually a needle phobe. I have a big phobia, and I'm petrified of places like hospitals. And I've never been in one in my entire life, and then I just got thrusted into this. So I had hospital from home, which was amazing service, and then they helped me recover for the next month. And then out of that, I just felt my life starting to shift and change with almost without me having to do anything. And my mind was still trying to make sense of it all. So then I'd always kind of looked into holistic practices and things. And it's funny, the journey of women that actually led me to where I got to today. And do you know what's quite funny? I had a look at some of your guests. And pretty much every woman that's been on my journey has been a guest on your show.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
I love hearing that. Yeah. That's so cool.
They're a pretty powerful collection of women you've had on and to share space with. So
absolutely.
You've obviously been attracted to some amazing healers. And,
I feel very honoured to be amongst this now.
Well, of course you will. Like, all I'm hearing is like this beautiful soul that's so shy of the light, and basically this thing of like having to nearly die before you actually embrace.
You've been totally shoved in.
Talk about sitting in avoidance.
Yes, it's like I said to my husband the other day. There's sometimes I feel like I'm in a funnel, and I'm coming down to that tiny little part, you know, where there's nothing else to look at but yourself. And it's like, hello.
And isn't that confronting?
Yes, very much so.
There's nobody else in the room.
Yes, exactly. Where have all my friends gone?
I can't hide behind them, or I can't distract myself with the conversation.
It's or for your instance, and for a lot of other women, it's the body breaking down.
Yes.
That is the wake up, which is a little, you know, when you start to really find that love in yourself again, you're like, oh, why did I put you through it? Why did I have to put myself through that to wake up? Well, you know, some of us do.
Yeah. And then it's, I think, that turning point of then having gratitude and appreciation for that. And I think that's been a big thing for me over the last couple of years, is like respecting that woman that got me here, and not being ashamed of those choices or the things that I made.
Yes.
Because without them, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Absolutely.
And I feel it's so strongly, we, as a healer, we have to walk that path to then help others do the same.
Yeah.
To be not be separate from, to be in compassion with, and understand what it's meant for them to have their experiences. And I feel I learned so much in their experiences as well. Like, it's funny how Spirit sends me clients and their life could be very different to mine, but the messages that I get back that I need to see in that moment.
Isn't that beautiful?
I love that. It's my favourite thing.
That's when you go, that almost brings tears to your eyes, because you know, whatever I'm doing is working, or whatever I'm doing, it's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's a big smack in the face.
Yeah.
Which is right.
It's what's needed. So you had this awareness after this happened?
So I went and actually saw a psychic, and she's local, and she kind of shone the light on me, for me, what had happened, you know, things connected to the liver, and, you know, how that tied into points of my life with relationships and a man that I was seeing. I just have to say he was a twin flame, so if you know, you know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Which is hot in there, isn't it? Like
it
twin flame,
is.
because isn't it, it's a soul split in two?
Yes, it is. And it's your magnet. It's your opposite. And you could be with
each other up.
Yeah, and you could continue to do the dance for the rest of this life, on and off.
Yes.
Very different to a soulmate. People often mix those two up.
But powerful lessons, like the outcome of that is like to have that experience is obviously a very strong being, which I think we both feel that about you, Kobi. Like to have that experience is it's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
No, it's certainly not. Yeah. So so I went and saw this psychic, and then she was always very good about promoting other women. And then she promoted somebody who was a Reiki healer. So I just felt drawn, and I'm like, I need to go see her. So I went and saw her and worked with her, and she helped me clear a lot of this as well. And then over time, then she posted somebody, and this lady was a shamanic healer, and she didn't even promote it on her Instagram. She wasn't trying into that, and I just went, I have to see this woman. Yeah. And I messaged her and just said, can I get a healing with you? What do you do? And she's like, I do shamanic healings. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but can I please book in? Yeah. And she said, of course. So I went and saw her, and it changed my life.
I reckon I know who that was.
Yeah, I think you probably do.
We've both had healings from her.
She's amazing.
Yes.
And so yeah, I had a few healings, I'll say, with Michelle.
Yes.
And
yeah, let's pump her up.
Yes.
So Michelle Verdict
Respect.
from Artistry of the Soul.
Yeah.
Look her up on Instagram. She's incredible.
She's amazing. Her medicine is so unique and so beautiful. You know, you find, just side noting about Michelle, but you find with Michelle, you can just go into that room and she pulls things out of you by talking that you didn't even know were in there.
Yeah.
She's just very gifted like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we worked through many, many things that I didn't even know were in there, and around my healing and around process from all that had come to the surface from getting sick as well. Yeah. And then it was probably, I think, my third healing with her. I started to see all these things. And like, I often had things drop in, as most people do. Sometimes you have a quiet time where your mind just shuts off, and other times you do see things. But things started to pop up, and I started to see all the things she was doing. And because I recounted it to her after, and she goes, you were watching what I was doing, and I saw the animals, I saw the things, you know.
Wow.
I was like, oh, wow. And she said to me, I think it's time. I think you should do the shamanic course with Kendall, who she'd also learned with. And I went, oh, I don't know. And it was the same with like today. It put me in this point of feeling uncomfortable and nervous, but I knew I had to do it because I felt like there was something when she'd done that last healing, like I'd come home and it just felt so right. And it was my medicine activating inside of me.
Wow.
And so I went and did the course, and I was so nervous. Like, I don't do things like this. Like, this is out of my comfort zone. And I also expected to walk into this whole room, and this sounds terrible, but of like full of tie-dye and like incense and all the things.
Sticks and
and there was some of that there. But I didn't know, and I expected to walk in a room full of like psychics and all these women who already know what they're doing and have all this connection. And I was so fearful of mine in that time, and I was still working through that and my trust with spirit. But I just knew I had to do it. I thought, well, we'll just treat it like an empowerment thing. And many women actually went to this course to do that, to deal with things like grief and a lot of grief actually in different forms.
So just on that, just for our listeners, you don't have to become a shamanic healer to do these workshops. You can go and do it
to be a shamanic healer is what you...
No, I'm just saying you can. You can absolutely become a shamanic healer out of it, but you don't have to want to be.
No.
You can go and do these courses and these workshops to learn so much about yourself.
Exactly. And a lot of women in there did. There was women who were letting go of a loved one, others dealing with a lot of miscarriages, all sorts of things that have really shifted and changed their life. And yes, they don't practice it now, but they were called to do that in that time for a reason.
I have another question. I hope you don't mind me asking this.
Sure.
Because I think it's really powerful for our listeners too, and for me too. You said you were really nervous about going in there, and what do you think that was?
I think it was a kind of one, being seen.
Yeah.
It was a few things of actually realizing my potential and facing that was in there, and the comparing of myself to others and not feeling good enough in the comparison of the other people in there. But the minute I walked into that room, I realized, oh, everyone feels like this. And actually our tribe, because when you do shamanic healing, you get a tribe and you get an animal. And for that group, and that collective group for level 1 is called together for a reason, and all played out. And we all had so much self-doubt and so much fear. So there was something in that was powerful, that you felt surrounded by people from all walks of life who were in that same position as you.
I think that's so powerful just to say that, because there's so many women out there that are stopping themselves from doing something in this. I'm talking about in the more spiritual area, because they don't feel like they're powerful enough. And there's no such thing as powerful enough. Because you already are. It's always been there. It's just we just need to face it and walk into the fear.
Yeah, it's that big imposter syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's why you're looking at that particular workshop or course in the first place. It's because there's a part of you that knows.
That's got the calling.
I mean, Michelle might have said to you, I think you're ready. But she's just saying that out loud to you.
She needed to connect me to that class and to Kendall and to the and that introduced me to my soul family and my tribe. And some of the women out of this course are now part of my family. And we have the most amazing connections. And they are so very much aligned to me. And I think that's what I was looking for because when I had talked before about my life before I got sick and the people who were around me, and they were beautiful friendships and they were kind people, they just weren't aligned to me anymore. And I was struggling with that, of letting them go to be able to step forward to where I was moving and expanding to people who were aligned with me.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things I struggled with in that was actually letting them go and being alone in that period and making, allowing the space for new people to come in.
Yeah, because we feel like we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Or we feel like we're hurting someone, but we're not. What we're actually doing is not only being there for ourselves to create a new space, but also giving them that opportunity.
Freedom to move.
It's like we're setting them free as well, because if it's not, it's not always just one way.
Exactly.
Sometimes the other people just don't see that yet.
Yeah, exactly. And we all have soul contracts too. And sometimes they're only meant to be in your life for a period of time.
Yeah.
And for us, the lessons you needed to learn in that time.
Absolutely.
And the word you use, alone, like it's difficult to go from being busy with people, no matter whether you feel right in busyness or not, to feeling like there's going to be nothing before there's something again.
Yeah. And that was my biggest struggle. I have this fear of being, I like my alone time and I like my space, but I'm also a very social person and I feed off other people's energy, and that makes me thrive. And that, so it was definitely very hard. And there was points where I pulled back. I came out of it and I didn't just walk away cold turkey. I was like, I started to step away, and then I'd get pulled back into it again because I had a fear.
Yeah.
Or like fear of also missing out as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess it's part of letting go of part of yourself as well in the process, isn't it? Like saying goodbye to the party girl or not necessarily goodbye, but changing her position in your life.
Yeah, because I didn't know who I was at that point too anymore. I was like, well, I'm leaving her, so who am I going to be now?
Yeah.
And who's coming in?
Yeah.
Little did I know.
Yeah.
this drumming, rattling medicine woman was ready.
Yes. That's so cool.
Yeah,
so
that's epic.
You've done this workshop and you're finding your place and your tribe and all of that. Where did you go after that?
How long does that course go for?
So that's 3 intensive full-on days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of living and breathing it. Yeah, is level 1. And then I knew I would do level 2, but there was, things in my mind blocking me and money and all sorts of things. But it ended up just lining up with ease. So I did practice a little bit, but there was so much fear and so much nerves around it. And again, that imposter syndrome of who am I to do this? Can I do this?
Yeah.
I felt it in the moment and I saw things awaken and activate in me during this course, but then to go away and do it. And then to get to level 2, you have to also practice and do things in that time. Yeah. And it's also daunting asking people, can I do this woo-woo shit on you?
Yes.
Yes. And trusting in their energy.
Absolutely. And like you were saying before, to stepping out of the old ways of being you. It's like, and then those people that actually don't want you, so they've still got their energy still dragging you back.
Yes.
And you're torn and you're like, I don't know what to do. I want to be this person, but I'm really scared to be this person, but I really don't want to be that person. It's like you're in a woo-woo space.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's showing that you're a woo-woo is hard. Because I work in the corporate sector as well. And that showing that side of yourself to people, and I worked in a company that was full of like engineers and different type of people who very much scientific minds. Yeah. So it took a bit for me to show that to the world, and especially that was the last one that I showed it to, was my corporate workspace.
Yeah.
Your real work.
Yes.
But not the real work.
Yeah.
Your old work.
Yeah. I feel like for me now, I'm still passionate about it, and I'm having another little awakening at the moment, which is why you saw this change in direction of how the two worlds are colliding. But I just lost my train of thought of where I'm going with that.
It's not easy to kind of say to somebody, as you say, like in your day job, if you want to call it that, or say your day job. I've done this course and I need someone to train with. Would you like to come and lie down on my couch for half an hour while I beat my drum?
And blow stuff into you.
And then you tell me how you feel.
Yes. Show me your rawest emotions.
And we're not laughing at the practice, but we're laughing at like the whole process of woo-woo, like this whole thing of how we share space, how we move energy,
Because that is the truth. That's where you want to be.
Yes.
Exactly what you just said. That's the space you want to be, and you want people to be receptive of that. And you want people to, I'd love that. Yeah. But in reality, there's a lot of people that are like, what the fuck are you going on about?
Yeah.
You're scaring the hell out of me right now.
Because it's starting to be real for you and it's sitting at home and you, but for other people, then you start to lose an awareness of how weird it might seem to other people, and other people it's like, oh yeah, I've heard something about this, or I feel like, I'm feeling something when you say that. There's little energy shifts around you.
It does. And some people are really brave and come on in, and then it's like, oh no, now I have to show up.
Yes.
Now I have to do this. And there was so much fear. There was so much fear. And I remember when I first started, I kept saying to everyone that would come in the door, I'm not psychic.
Yes.
I'm not psychic. And I kept putting this parameter around myself because I had this stigma about being psychic. And I realized down the track, this is a big block for me.
I was just thinking that. Hello, psychic.
And I because I didn't have this belief in myself and had a lot of distrust in spirit as well, and I had to do a lot of work around that, and theta was a big point for me.
Can you explain a little bit? Because I know our past guest, she's also a theta healer. Yes. I think, is that how you say it? But
everyone says it differently.
Yeah, a theta healer or something. Yeah. I didn't get the opportunity to ask her exactly what it is. So can you just give us a brief overview of what it is? She's the one. She actually taught me theta. Yes, this is how we're all intertwined locally. Yeah, beautiful. It's really around downloading beliefs and feelings and removing limiting beliefs and feelings. And I hope I'm doing this justice. But so basically the theory behind it is, how can you attract something in if you don't know what it truly feels like? Yeah, right.
So, and they call it theta because it works in the seventh plane of the seventh dimension, right, which is one of the highest.
So Bruce Lipton talks about this for he calls it self-hypnosis. If it's the same thing, I'm just having this recollection now, where he does this thing where you can, the first 30 minutes before you go to sleep and the first 30 minutes upon waking, if you listen to, it's almost like affirmations, but you can actually, because you're in the theta state or the theta state, you can actually change the programming of your mind.
Yeah. It's similar. It's not the same, but it's very similar. This is working with creator, spirit, the universe, whoever you want to call it, and connecting in that high level. And so the theory is, so say, for example, you were wanting to find love or attract in love. How can you do that if you don't know what unconditional love is, or you never felt unconditional love? So therefore you would download the feeling of unconditional love. Wow. So you know what it feels like to attract that in. Yeah. And on the other hand, it also works of removing the limiting beliefs. So the thoughts and the collection of conditioning that has happened to us throughout our lives, particularly, as we know, we're like sponges as children. And the moment we enter this earth, we are born into us is our parents and our genetic line's beliefs and conditioning. Yeah. So it's clearing through all of that and digging through the trauma and the wounding. I did a lot of work with Carly around this and clearing through my distrust in spirit, my distrust in self, and all that that had happened to open that back up. Because I had so much fear around telling people. And it's funny because in my healings, I would tell people messages. When I go into soul rooms and things in shamanic, that's going into a room with the client and somebody else in a relationship and their subconscious. Yes. And so by doing that, you get a lot of messages and you connect. So you are still using your psychic senses. And I didn't realize this, but I had a lot of fear around getting it wrong or telling people the wrong thing. And I learned that, and my shamanic teacher really helped me with this as well. It was like, you can't say the wrong thing, and you've got to trust in what they show you. And this is where it turned around for me. It's just like starting to trust.
Because it's your essence.
It is.
Just your essence, whatever that is. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's all of those things.
Yeah. And I remember, I think some of the turning points with me was there was times, I remember the first time they showed me someone had been in domestic violence in a past relationship. And I was like, I can't say this to the person. Imagine if I say this and I get right. I could just say it. Yeah. And she went, oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. And what you described happened in this situation. And I went, oh, okay, I can trust you guys. Yeah.
But honey, we need the what do you call it? What's that word? We need validation.
Yes.
Constant validation. Hey.
Yep. I went from seeking validation prior to this from other people and from men, and then I started seeking validation from spirit.
Hey, that's a step in the good direction.
It is.
Oh, I love it.
A much more feminine supportive direction.
Yes. This is so perfect.
So I want to ask around this space, because like it sounds like you've been someone who's been attracted to psychics for guidance. Mm-hmm. Was that, and yet there's the block, as you're saying, around it, seeing it in yourself, even though they've been, or feeling it in yourself, even though they've been sharing with you, they see it in you. Yeah. So was there someone in your childhood that used to see psychics, or what drew you to psychics in the first place?
My mum did. Yeah, she'd always done it, and I mean, she usually just saw psychics. She wasn't open to the rest of it. She is now. My dad was very much closed off. He was like, and we couldn't tell Dad when we were going to see a psychic, which is funny because, well, not funny because my dad has actually passed a few years, or 5 or 6 years ago.
So he knows now.
He knows now, and he communicates. And it's funny when they get on the other side, and it's, you know, and the beautiful ways in which he can communicate and comes through. And that's another blessing in walking this path too, is being open to that, because it also helped me heal in my grief and connect with him, because I hid my grief and sat on it for so long to points where it would actually explode. So then when I came into this, I was like, oh wow, now I have to face it, and now I can connect with him, and I see that he guided me to where I needed to go on this journey.
He's in a better space now too.
Oh yeah. So as much as I miss him dearly and would love him to be in moments, he is part of my support team now, and it's nice to be able to go up and connect with him as well.
It's reminding me flashbacks to Rasa, isn't it, with her father and brother. Were very, and much of that whole psychic connection she had with them were what you were describing, very healing.
She had a profound realization that her brother was supposed to pass. And that's in the podcast. So he actually chose to leave, and it was very hurtful, but then through her communication with him on the other side, she realized that he was supposed to pass so they could have this relationship. Like, because we all know that it's another part of us that still doubts, and you know, that we can't see, them not physically here to touch, but they are definitely around us.
So seeing that magic.
Yeah, so it's such a beautiful gift, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to give other people when it comes up as well. But when you were talking about, like, you know, seeing these other psychics, so I had been doing that over the years growing up, and I had started to put psychics and healers on this pedestal, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people have their life together. They go through life with ease and breeze because they just work through stuff, and they're all aligned, and they do all these things in meditation and
little fairy sparkles on them so they can see
unicorns just, you know, floating around.
But little did I know, no, that is not the case. And we, working in this space, often have to walk the path before everybody else does. So even when the energy's coming in and we're dealing with retrogrades and portals and all sorts of things happening, this stuff hits us normally. I find it's about 2 weeks beforehand, because I used to go on my Instagram and go, are people feeling this? Is anyone else feeling this? And they kind of be like, 2 weeks later, there it is. And it's like, oh, now I can actually help you walk through this. So I get why that happens in the way that it does. But I put them on this pedestal, and then it became the point of when, and you said, as you're saying, when I came out of level 1, what happened? It's like you compare, then I started to compare myself, and I was like, well, they're all amazing, and they do, and especially when you've had someone like Michelle working on you, and then you compare to how they do their healings, because how I do my healings is very different to how others do their healings, because all of our medicine inside of us is so different. And then, you know, I guess from that, and level 2 was definitely a big turning point to me. I feel like level 2 is the point where you go, okay, I have some more to learn here. I'm ready to take this to the next level and really get in there and get deep. It's almost like you get into level 2 and it's like, okay, forget everything you learned in level 1, because now we're going.
Isn't that just the stages of involvement?
When made you feel comfortable, and take it away and put you here.
And I was petrified, because that's when you had to start learning the drumming, and you had to drum in front of other people. I was like, I don't want to do this. But then there's something so empowering, and then once you do it, it just comes out. It's like the first time that another language, because I've always held that in, like, you know, another language will often come out from like a tribal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is inside of me. I don't know what, you know, I don't know what she's saying, but she's, you know, she's coming out.
That's so amazing.
Do you feel like, how do you feel when that's happening?
I feel like I'm in my power. Like it's just connecting in. I don't even know how to put this into words. It's just so profound, and but the best way I can put that is just stepping into your power.
And you just look elated even when you're talking about it.
And I was just thinking, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're doing it in front of 1,000 people, 100 people, or just in your room alone. It's the same feeling.
Exactly. I think sometimes even more intimidating just doing it for the client. You know.
What a beautiful sacred space. Yeah, that's really lovely. So you're now level 2 and you're stepping into your power slowly.
Then it was because I'd started to form my business as well. And there was, because I'd originally started this business as, because I love crystals and I was selling, like, how do I get crystals to people other than just a beautiful crystal sitting on the desk? For those who don't use them day in, day out, like how does a crystal work for me other than a decoration? So I started to look for crystals in ways that it could be incorporated in everyday life for women and men, I should say, as well. Things like makeup brushes and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of kept pivoting back and forward from it. And then from that, once I'd done the course, it started to evolve and I was like, this is where this was going.
Wow.
This was turning into my healing practitioner business. So I started to do my shamanic healings, and I love them, but I was very much following a process. I was kind of like, this is how I learned. So I would do all these steps and do these things, but something was restricting in there, and I was like, this doesn't always feel quite right. It feels a bit rigid.
Yeah,
and along the way, I have added other modalities in there. So I've also added Reiki, and I've added the Theta as well, and I've added access bars too. But adding those things in started to help awaken me and realize, because spirit, when I go in there, I'm working with spirit and I'm working with my team and I'm working with my client's team, and they're guiding me on what needs to do. I'm just the channel in the middle. Yeah. They're the ones who are actually, gifting what needs to be healed, what needs to be done, the messaging, all of that sort of, all the work. I'm the channel in the middle giving that, and then the client actually goes away and does the work.
Yeah.
They're the big key in this, because you pay anyone to do all the healings you like, but if you're not willing to do the work, then nothing's going to change, is it?
Absolutely.
So then I started to realize there was something in this flow, and they started giving me things or pulling in some of my other modalities or pulling me to do things that I hadn't even learned yet. And I went,
wow.
Oh, okay, hang on. And I'd go away and I'd be like, what was it I just did? And Google it.
Classic.
And I went, oh, wow. Okay. And that turned my whole business around and my whole healings around, because I went, I'm going to do, and they helped me get to this, I'm going to do intuitive healings where I just get guided by spirit.
Epic.
I have all my modalities, and what needs to come in for that person will come in.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Because now I'm no longer restricted. I'm working with the team of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it just flows.
So you change the label.
Yeah.
Box that had to fit into.
Yeah, exactly. I unrestricted myself.
Coracle. That's what that is, isn't it? Like, that's the whole, like an oracle is like the whole, it's like source.
Yeah. I hadn't looked at it like that, but you just gave me that. Because I actually was like playing around with names for a long time before, as the key first step in the business, not even know what it was going to be. And I wanted some sort of spiritual name, and oracle really called out to me, but I also wanted to incorporate my family names.
I read that.
Yeah, my brother, my mum, and my dad. And then, so that word coracle also incorporates.
This is Kobi's name.
I heard coracle, and then we said oracle. And I'm like, it must be. I'm having time warps.
Oracle jumped straight out at me. Like, and I was like, what an amazing name. I said, look at her.
That's like, right.
Your emblem it's almost 3D, third dimension, 5D. Like 5D. It's like it's
moving
so
when you look at it.
I so needed to hear that. Thank you, because I've been playing around with like, do I need to change things up a little bit? Things are moving around at the moment. I'm working out what needs to change.
That is
kind of
beautiful.
crystalline.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And the feathers, because I wanted feather in it, because feather is big and shamanic, and I'm very connected with feathers.
Well, that's the part that stood out the most. That felt like it was like moving. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. And my dad always communicates with feathers. There's many past loved ones too.
Yes,
so that was very key for me. And then when all the names combined and aligned, and it made this word, and then wellness got added actually later. And it wasn't until I didn't realize till later that then it stood for my initials. So like Coracle Wellness is the same as my initials.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's funny how it all aligns and shifts.
Absolutely.
In the end.
And I loved that you're talking about this. It's all about your essence, and that's what I'm feeling with everybody too. Like you can go out there and do 10 different like healing modalities and just take a little bit from that, a lot from that, a little bit from that, and then make it you. and then you're not limited either.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
100%.
no
interpretation and flow.
Yeah.
Because all of that medicine and knowledge lives inside of you.
Absolutely.
And it's lived inside of you from lifetimes before. It's just reactivating in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's something I've been doing a lot over the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's happening, but there's a lot of awakenings.
Yeah.
The amount of medicine women I'm going in and awakening and
Yes.
other healers.
Unreal.
It's just lighting up my soul.
No, the time is now.
And you mean that like physically these people are coming into you for okay,
or distance.
Yeah.
I have
Great.
my clients are half splits. I have half that come in person and usually down on the Gold Coast or Brisbane, and then the other half are overseas. So I do distance as well. So I have a lot in Canada and a little bit in the US as well.
Amazing. How you resonate with different places in the world.
Oh yeah, I feel like the Canadians are much like our energy. They're like our long lost cousins.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Because I don't want to say it, but that under the Commonwealth, but there is some kind of funny thread there. That
there is.
It's a connection. Yeah. I know what you mean. So now you're fully in doing all of your work. You're no longer doing corporate stuff.
I'm still doing corporate
Okay,
stuff. And
yep.
still to this day,
Yes.
I'm doing corporate stuff.
Yep.
So it's funny, you know how I said to you before, I didn't want to show my woo-woo to them.
Yes.
It's also been the other way around where I'm like, oh, do I show that I still work in corporate?
Corporate,
Like,
yep.
and will people judge me for that? Or will they want to see me? I had a lot that I had to work through on that.
Yep.
And showing all sides of me.
Yeah.
But corporate, I had this sink in the other day because I'm having an awakening around how I said about corporate and they're colliding at the moment. And yes, I had, what is going on with this scattered energy? Is anyone else feeling this?
It's like pulling you from here to there and everywhere.
I've got and this happens to me when I'm doing healings. I'm like,
because we're downloading as we're talking. It's like there's like so much energy at play.
And creating space which is allowing new stuff to come in. It's like, where did you come from?
Yes. Oh gosh,
we're having a very grounding tea, which is lucky.
Oh yes. I've been wanting to take another sip. I'm too busy talking away. Sorry, where was I going?
Colliding the two worlds.
The corporate and
Yes.
Yeah.
So they started telling me, yes, I had this realization. I actually had a client come in recently who has just awakened me of how these are colliding. And I've just done it to myself again. I'm so sorry.
No,
it's really funny what you say about crystals.
I'm glad you do it because I thought I was the only one that did that.
There's been like literally glitches in time recently.
Yeah.
Like, more tangible than usual, like literally time.
Why don't we skip over that? Maybe we're not meant
to.
They're
pivoting me for some reason.
I want to ask you, it's not to ask you. I want to share that years ago, a friend used to work in corporate with like healings and things like that, and she would bring in the crystals a lot and create quite. Like working with CEOs and that sort of thing. Like it was like a team bonding thing and almost like a fun experience for them, but the change in the experience, how it rippled down through the business and the company over that she used to watch to see what would happen, and it would give her a lot of fulfillment because it's a very bricks and mortar space, and even as you're saying, working with engineers and things like that, it's all about constructing and building and all beautiful people in a very intelligent, like scientific space. But I'm getting a sense of maybe like, how you're still in that space is for a reason.
And exactly what you described is where I'm going, because what I realized was I had already been doing this work many years ago before I'd even opened up or let my spirituality in. Years and years ago, I worked for about 10 years as an executive assistant. So I used to work with big CEOs and big corporate people. And I always found like they very much come in to run a business and, generate money, generate the running of everything. But the one thing that I always felt like I had to pull in was around people and culture and wellness, really. Yeah. And I didn't realize how much I was doing that at the time. But I looked back the other day after seeing this client and I went, oh my gosh, I was already doing this back then without even realizing. Yeah. But now the tables are turned. And this person helped introduce like CEOs and other things into my clientele. And now I'm like, the tables have turned and I'm now working with these people energetically.
Openly.
Yes, in a different space. And I've just recently took the risk and stepped out of my corporate job. Whilst I still continue to work in this space for now, because I think there's still things to learn, but I walked away from it with nothing else to go to. And this is the awakening and shift I'm walking at the moment. Yeah. But I've had this realization, and right before I left, I did this pack for them on employee benefits connected to mental wellness and, you know, holistic healing and all the things that they can bring in to the corporate world to help their staff, and it's only going to benefit them.
Fantastic. And
so then I went, oh my gosh, this is where another directional component of my business. You guys are the first to hear this, by the way. Is that I'm going to start to combine my corporate world and knowledge from that with my holistic practices and help businesses to help their employees, make it an employee perk, make it a different employee benefit that you can offer that others aren't or haven't seen that. Offer the niche, but also creating things like, if you want to, like retreats, as you said, or team building days with a bit of a difference. I definitely see the challenge that will be ahead in this, but I feel like it's going to be
I think more large corporations are waking up to the fact that it's not winning on all levels anymore. It's kind of like winning, you know, win-win, everybody's winning kind of thing, instead of just trying to compete all the time.
And the key is in your people. And, you know, whether we like it or not, or whether we try to or not, we still bring our things with us. We bring our backpack full of all our stuff from home and the outside world, and we can't help that, particularly now when we're all working from home quite a lot as well. All of our worlds are combining and colliding, so you're only going to help your business by clearing this out and being holistic.
It's like the full circle. I get the full circle. They're only dealing with half the circle when they're not looking at the other part.
Because a lot of people who are in, I'll say, leadership roles, they're often very highly developed with their gut instincts, even if they're applying it in a pragmatic sense. You know, for profit and returns and things like that, as opposed to you know, how their human resources department are going, perhaps, you know, people skills or whatever. There's often a gut instinct there that's very highly developed. So bringing awareness into that area, it's just about opening a door, isn't it, really? The door is there, but it's opening the door, and you're kind of offering that with what you're talking about.
Because by supporting them and helping them heal and grow, you're only going to add to your own business and what you get out of them as well.
Absolutely. I can feel a lot of I keep going away to say stability, but it's like you know, for you to be able to stand fully in your knowingness in that area will be like not the pinnacle, because we're not going to contain you.
No, we're not going to give her one mountain.
That would be massive. But we've actually had another lady on the podcast who has a company called I think it's like Conscious Creators or something like that in Sydney, and that's what she does.
Oh wow!
Yeah, she's been big time in the corporate world. And then now loves all this, everything you're talking about.
Amazing.
Yeah, so she had her foot in both worlds and very good in the corporate sector too. But we just felt like there was something else needed. So I say go for it. It's definitely needed.
Thank you.
Yeah. We might,
when you look at it too, like the Japanese have always had a system of incorporating
the feng shui stuff.
The Chinese, the Japanese with the gardens and at lunchtime doing, you know, outside in the fresh air and some exercise and things like that. And that was adopted by the West, you know, like, and often, and you look at, say, work environments in San Francisco, the warehouse open plan type of scenario, how it creates more community in the workspace and awareness of each other. So to bring what you're talking about in around this space of spiritual wellness, you know, I feel like business will just so naturally want, you know, it's like you're feeling it for a reason. It's like
a lot of young companies are the ones who are awakening to this, and as you say, like the startups and all that, and that's some of the best places I've worked, because as you said, it's more this openness and that communication, and they're realizing this and they can implement it very quickly too when you're in that smaller growth stage as well.
And I guess you can talk all the languages, can't you, like the shaman as well as the corporate, like you can relate to the benefits and
definitely.
Powerful skills are in place.
We're going to jump on. I know we've actually skipped a few questions. That's because they've just naturally evolved through your chatting about your awakening, which has been so beautiful. One of the things I wanted to ask is, what were some of the things that you noticed happening around you when you started to kind of, you know, wake up, and like, did you notice anything around... Well, I suppose the theta healing would have opened you up to a lot of the beliefs, patterns, programming and all of that as well.
Did, but it came later.
Yeah.
Once I'd kind of already gone through the awakening and what I want to call the crumbling, because that's what started to happen. My world started to crumble around. Like those people started to fall away, and things started to fall away, and the panic sets in.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
What's happening to me?
The panic is a big word, isn't it?
Yeah. And it was before that time where I'd had theta and I could do the, learning to trust and all of that. And you had to learn the hard lessons, and learning that if you don't heal it or you ignore it, back on in it comes. This is a different lesson. And this is a big thing in the relationships as well, because if you don't, and this is something that what I see a lot in clients, and this is what I walked as well, and why I have this passion about clients, because about relationships, is because if you don't learn the lesson from that relationship, and I think you guys alluded to this before, you will carry it into the next.
Yeah.
And that will continue to happen until you realize and learn and clear that.
I think, it's so easily, that just rolls off your tongue because you know it and you understand it. And so do we, but there are a lot of people out there that aren't aware of that. That concept on its own. They're just not aware of it. And they wonder why they keep going into relationships. And yes, you do have a 6-month honeymoon period. You still do get to have that. But then whack, all of a sudden you'll find you'll be creating the same old patterns.
Yeah. And people often say, well, why do I always attract men that cheat on me? Why do I always attract narcissists? Because that's the belief that you have. That's, and you've got to learn something from them. They're coming into your life. And often some of these things, and not saying that everyone's parents are cheaters or narcissists, but sometimes in some clients, that's what they've known. That's what they've grown up and seen. Therefore, by no other choice of their own, that's what they've attracted into their life.
Yeah.
Well, it's so often you hear people say, "Oh, I married my
mother,
or I married my father." Or,
it's like we don't even know that, our father or our mother might have been a narcissist. We don't know that at the time, and then all of a sudden we've gotten someone says to, "Oh, they're a narcissist," and you're like, is that what that's called? Or, is that what that is? You're really unaware of it because you've lived in that environment. I know my son says this to me all the time. You're not aware of the smell in the room unless you leave the room and then come back in. And when people come in that haven't been in the room, they're like, "What's that smell?" And you're like, "What smell?"
That's so true.
Yes,
that's such a good way to look at it.
Here. It's like, yeah, there is. It's like, you're just so unaware of it because you've been in it.
Exactly.
You just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
So would you say the crumbling is when you got sick? When you
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first big rock falling, that's for sure. And really made me look at my life.
Yeah.
And decide, what do I want? And I all of a sudden too, and I thought at first this was just from being ill, I was like, I don't want to drink alcohol anymore. I still drink alcohol. Yeah. Very much limited.
For the enjoyment of it instead of the need for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was never one to drink in the week or anything like that. I'm 1 or 100. Like I'll have a drink at lunch or did with friends or something like that. Or I go out and celebrate and it'd be a big night. And that only ever happened on the weekends. But yeah, I just didn't feel that need to want to do that anymore. And I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
My friends were kind of like,
this is odd.
Yeah. And I feel like I energetically started to attract things into my life that sort of blocked it. Because then I put myself in a point, and money's always been an up and down thing for me when I've worked through. But I'm having this realization as I talk to you that I attracted in a lack around money, and that prevented me from going out as well. Like it was like, I can't afford it.
Yes.
And it was like, and now I see, thank you, what happened. It was because it was part of me being like, it's okay to stay home. It's okay to start and find who Kobi is again, or where I need to go next. Yeah.
And universe, I'm not drinking anymore, so you can open up the funding.
Yes. But I was like, how did I afford it? Because I was then in a point where I was like, seemed to have no money, but I was not going and getting Ubers anymore. I wasn't blowing money on alcohol and, food the next day and all that sort of stuff. I was like, so where's the money going now?
Yeah.
But it was this leak.
Yes.
And it was all just leaking out in different ways.
Yes.
And it's another relationship, isn't it? Like it's,
it is.
Yeah. Having those conversations with those, the money or the business or the person, it's all the same thing, taking that time to try to understand each other.
Definitely. Yeah, we've had some good old lessons together in how we get money.
I feel like we just kind of chatted about that around some of the things you've had to change.
Yeah, I love it.
We'll move on to the next one, which is probably very similar, but anything you've had to give up.
People.
Yeah, people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say people or things.
People, definitely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I gave up alcohol, but I have a different relationship with it. And I recognize now by doing that how it actually impacts me. And I have more of an awareness, because when you're not getting drunk every weekend and on the odd occasion, you're like, oh, this is how it affects my body. This is how it affects me spiritually. You know, and I put protection around myself before I have it now, and things that I've had to learn around that. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get a hangover. I'm sorry, guys, that one doesn't work. But
I was hoping you were going to share some tricks with our listeners.
I wish. I have tried putting Reiki in my wine. Just a little bit, but not doesn't cure the hangover. But yes, protection around myself, because I didn't realize how much it opened me up and made me susceptible to dark energies and darkness. Because spirits are a spirit in itself. It has its own spirit.
That's interesting. That is, I've heard that before. And the dark spirits and the light spirits and all of that.
That's why they all affect people differently. Like, you know, rum often tends to make people more aggro. Interesting.
And I just keep coming back to like your liver being your, you know, because obviously alcohol affects so many things, but our liver is one. But also like that time in 2020 leading I'm not a psychic, but I'm feeling really unwell, and the whole world's going to be unwell. 2 weeks, 2 months before it all happens, it's like, you know, like that. So many people who are sensitive in that time have had quite significant things happening in their lives as a premonition, and just, you know, that's feeling of what's coming. So, you know, all the things that you're describing around lifestyle and things like that you popped yourself into as a way of going, okay, this is who Kobi is, but then your liver and your higher self going, hang on a minute, this thing is going to be coming down soon, and we really need to kind of like start going a different path. What can we do? The liver goes, me, no.
It's like, hit the evacuation. We want it to crumble now.
And there was stigma around that too, because I was like, I'm not an alcoholic, guys. It's because of the alcohol. And I felt like I had to defend that every time I said I had a liver abscess. Because people straight away go, oh, is it because of your drinking? And I was like, oh, judgment. Okay.
Was it gin? Was it vodka?
That is interesting, isn't it? Because that's another, you know, stigma. You can actually turn that into something, you know, with that carrying on as well. But that was definitely... I reckon it was just spirit saying, no, time's up. We need you to do other things that are more important.
And we're going to make you listen now. You don't have a choice.
And your liver's going, well, I've been really frustrated because, you know, she's a psychic and she's saying no all these years. So I've really got some energy I want to share.
Yes.
And Kobi starts moving into a whole different space.
A whole different world.
It's really just magic when you look back.
I was going to say the body is magical too, isn't it? The way it looks after us. Like even when we don't want to look after ourselves, it's going to say, sorry, I'm taking over just for a little while.
Have you guys read that book, The Secret Language of the Body?
No.
It's like the Bible. Get it. You can buy it in like Big W, everything. And it tells you in different body parts what it's connected to emotionally. And I swear when something gets sore or something happens, or even things down to like a UTI or other things, all these things are in there, it tells you what is going on in your life. You go, oh my God.
Well, I've had for the last 30 years, the body is the barometer of the soul, which is, is it Louise Hay? I thought it was, might be.
Louise Hay, and then also Carolyn Mist did one.
Yes. So exactly the same thing, and as well as your car.
The knowledge and
this one tells you about your car when things go wrong, or if you get in a car accident or anything, what's happening.
And I've heard that could happen in your house and things too, like with water leaks mean different things and stuff like that.
Like your house is the body.
Yes,
kind of yes, I have heard of that as well.
It's so interesting.
It is. Let's not get off track. Yes. Back to you, love. I see what you did there. Oh, classic. Okay, so what do you do now, Kobi, to support yourself in staying in the moment? Well, and staying, true to Kobi.
Wow, that's a big question. I think it all depends on the moment.
Yeah.
Big thing for me is water. I'm always, clears my mind and just eases everything. It talks to my soul. So I have slowly worked my way closer to the beach. And now I'm like 100 meters from the beach, and it's changes my energy just going and walking along there. Even when I lived in Brisbane, I used to always walk along the river. It's just something in that just helps clear my mind, because I am a chronic overthinker from way back, obviously in the past.
Are you a water sign?
No, I'm a fire sign. I'm an Aries.
Okay.
Yeah. So it must be the balance. It must cool me down a little bit. Yeah. Because I can be used to be quite reactive or hot-headed. Yeah. She comes out every now and again.
Yeah.
She's useful.
For good reasons. Yes,
she is.
Yes. Absolutely.
She has her voice. So that's a big one for me. And then I guess meditation, and I'm not going to lie, I go in and out of it, and I allow that too. But every time, when you haven't done it for a little while and then you do it and you go, why don't I do this more often?
That feels so good.
And getting support from others is a big one for me. So getting healings myself, allowing others that I trust to work in my energy, because people, I used to think there's like, you can go and heal yourself, and yes, you can to an extent, but we still have things that we block in our subconscious as well, and that we can't see, or that we're not meant to activate, or we need others to help us do that. So I do see other people with different modalities. A big one for me between clients, because in my work you take on a lot of energy, and it's something I have to work on because I hold a lot of it as well. So I go and get Lomi Lomi a lot. Actually, it's a big one for me. Because not only is it a beautiful, relaxing massage, but it's an energetic healing and clearing in itself. So I make sure I do that at least once every 1 or 2 months as well between clients.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful flowing massage as well, isn't it? So very connecting of the sensory and the receiving. And
that beautiful Hawaiian medicine.
And the rhythm and things like that. Very nice. And it's so important to be able to restore and replenish your energy, and just that centralizing again, coming back to center, when you can get pulled out into the energies. And so with your psychic parts of Kobi, how does that work for you? Is it something that's on all the time, or is it
yes no in that it's funny, because when I was quite young, I'm going to jump back a little bit in the story here, but I used to always have this knowing around people. My brother used to say to me, it's like you can read people like a book. And I was like, it wasn't until he said that to me one day, I was like, he's like, you really read other, and we didn't know what that was back then. I'll read energies and things like that. And I used to also see things from time to time, and it continued on until I opened my spirituality and started doing this. Of like, they would turn up and they would be standing over the top of me, and I'd wake up, and it'd take me a good 5-10 minutes to realize it wasn't real. Well, not real, but like they weren't there. Or things like, I wake up and snakes would be in my bed. I'm like, and that was often signs of things going on in my life. And that's what prevented me from wanting to be psychic, because I thought that if I'm going to be psychic, then it's going to allow all these people in.
And it's going to be terrifying.
Because it is terrifying. Seeing these, and they don't necessarily terrify me, but when you're there in the middle of the night asleep and you wake up and you think an actual person is standing over the top of you.
It's completely different from the daylight.
You don't know them. Like, what, you don't have the presence of mind to go, and who are you? Why are you here?
So I used to see all this, and some homes were worse than others because I didn't realise there was things on the land or there's things in place. I lived in this apartment in Kedron, and when you have the wardrobe mirrors beside the bed, I used to see them at night.
Oh God!
It would come pop up, and I still didn't believe myself to be psychic, by the way. But my thing is not necessarily seeing. It happens from time to time, but it's not. Mine is a knowing. And I found that really hard to tap into, because I thought, I'm going to hear their voice. I'm going to hear someone talk to me, or I'm going to, because you go and see psychics and they all do it in different ways, and you just expect that that's what's going to happen for you. And I get people ask me this all the time. It's like, how do you know? I'm like, I just know. They're like, well, how do you tell if it's your voice or their voice? I'm like, well, they both sound the same. I don't know how, until it clicks in. And you let go of the fear and trust in what is coming in. You can tell the difference between what is, your intuition and what they are coming in and telling you.
It's because I'm getting it when you're talking about that, is like, it's like those pictures you look at and you almost have to let your eyes cross over or something to see what's in the
They say
picture.
that, don't they? They say
and you're
that,
almost in the letting go of the fear and the and trusting.
Yeah.
You feel the knowing.
Yeah.
You know the knowing.
And most people know what it is without even knowing. You don't know in the time what your thing is. It's because you have fear and distrust around it of yourself and with spirit.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah. But yeah, they come in all forms. Like sometimes I remember once my friend and her dad came in to tell me when she was having a baby and he had passed, but I could hear him and I could hear him singing. Oh. So occasionally that it comes in. He was singing the day that it was going to be that she went into labor. And this is where it does pop in at times. Sometimes it's more with people who I have worked and been in their energy that it'll just come through at any point. But I have had to set parameters around it, and this has been the key in these people not coming in anymore and standing over the top of me of going, you come in business hours and this is your window and setting that. And it's like, you can't come in. And now that I'm open to it and I see that I communicate and do all the things that I need to do, they don't need to come in those times anymore, and they have to respect my boundaries that I've enforced.
And I've actually heard that too from other psychics, and they say they have to set boundaries, or else they'll just come in all the time. Yeah. Especially if you're speaking to people that have passed on, and some of them show up, and some of them don't look so great. Yeah. Too. So,
thankfully, I don't see them now, when I communicate.
Yeah.
Which is terrible, but yeah.
Yeah.
So does it make you think when you're younger that you're even more open and that you?
Yes. Yeah. And that's why kids have imaginary friends and they see things. I definitely had them, and it's because they can and animals as well. Yeah. Yeah, they can see things because they haven't had that conditioning and that, life that happens. It closes us off to these things.
Yeah. So true.
I remember when I saw The Sixth Sense for the first time with Bruce Willis. Every time I watched it and I was totally blown away, and every time I thought about it for like 6 months after, I'd be totally blown away in the same. It was such an intense experience because of the twist at the end.
Oh, it was wild, wasn't it? Yeah. I think it blew everyone away. Yeah.
It was incredible.
It was like, what?
Yeah.
You just kind of sat there in silence at the end of it. Yeah.
Interesting. And it's that when you're talking, for me, it's like resonating with that same thing where just how there's so much going on around us at any time. But, however our senses are open or not, what we are picking up on and the relationship that we have with our environment is quite I don't know, just it's challenging sometimes to think of how dynamic it is and how much, like they say about how much of our brain we use, like only 10% even, if it's that. And our energy fields, when you're talking about your psychic sense, how much we're using of our senses to pick up on what's going around us.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, it's wild.
We won't even bring in timelines.
No, gosh.
So it's like you've formed a relationship. Like the more you're moving into not restricting yourself and unblocking your beliefs around your limiting beliefs.
And I'm still doing that, and I'm still learning, and and we will forever do that in our lifetimes. That's why we've lived many lives, because we have lessons to learn in each.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're constantly evolving. Like you said when you came in, you're not the person you were even a month ago. It's like things are moving and changing that quickly these days.
Yeah. And speaking of timelines, that feels like it's sped up, right? Yes. It's like the universe is wanting us to get there a lot quicker.
A lot quicker. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
speaking of the universe, how does Kobi see the world now, and what do you see next for us, or what do you see next for you?
I feel like we've all started to awaken, and I think things are shifting, and as we were just saying, are starting to move a lot faster.
Yeah.
Why and what that means, I mean, we don't know yet, but I think after what we've seen over the last few years, everything has changed, and it's changed our world. Yeah. And I think there's 100% reason behind that.
Yeah.
But I definitely think people are opening up to this world so much more now, right? It was not talked about before, and even the crystal stores, you see them just flooded with people after COVID, people looking for these things and realizing it's so much bigger and there's so much more out there.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, I just just continue to expand and evolve. I'm about to step into this path of what does this mean of my corporate world and things colliding. You know what? I feel like for the first time in my life, I am just going with the flow.
Yay.
And it feels bloody cool.
Yes.
We'll do that.
And I finally feel like I've stepped into my power the minute I walked out of that job.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize how much it was leaking into my life.
Yeah.
Into my well-being of myself, to my business, because everything has taken off since I've walked out of it. And I'm not saying bad against that, because that was a lesson, and I learned a lot in that. But I realized in the divine timing that had to happen and change.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's bigger and more expansive things coming.
Absolutely.
And I'm very, very excited.
Yeah.
And it feels in this point, like I said, when I say I step into my power, I just feel content. And I feel I know who I am, and I'm comfortable with who she is. And I know what it feels like 100% now to give myself that self-love.
Yeah.
And I just live in the present moment so much more.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't have my bad days, because there was like one the other week, and I share this with all my Instagram followers. There's something in the rawness of the truth, because and that's why, as much as it makes me comfortable at times, I want to share that, because by other people of doing that, it's resonated with me and helped me, so I want to do the same. Yeah. And that's why I also share a lot about other healers and other businesses and other things, because that's how I found my path. Yeah. So I want to help other people, because I'm not necessarily your answer. If you're intuitively drawn to me or my medicine, that's what I tell my clients, and they're like, oh, when do I see you again? I'm like, if you feel like you need to and you want to, you listen to that. It doesn't mean you have to come up to me. Maybe it's someone else's medicine. But
there's a lot of freedom in that.
Amazing,
and because this is a community now, right? And that's what I had been looking for, and that's when I was in that lost phase. I think that's what was missing, was finding my tribe, finding my community. Because having a soul-led business on your own can be lonely at times. So you need to have that support and tribe around you.
Absolutely.
Because especially, as you're saying, with downloading or receiving or knowing, just having a community that's in resonance immediately gives much more, I guess I'll say, self-authority to just act on that energy, as opposed to the doubt or the disconnect and things like that. So
and you guys have created that here. This is a whole community, and where people can come and go, whoever they need to hear from or resonate with, and part of their story. It's nice to have that.
Absolutely. It's like an activation network.
Oh, I like that.
It's it's what's needed, and the more people, like you, just talking about your truth, speaking your truth,
and the
rawness in that, and how much that supports and helps others.
Because sometimes you feel like you're talking to a brick wall, because you don't know what you're getting. And it's funny, because every time I think to myself, is anyone even listening? Because it only has to help one person, and that's fine with me. And then all of a sudden I'll think it, and then Spirit sends them into me, and they'll go, oh my gosh, I always resonate with what you're saying in this time, or it's like you're in my life. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, Anita, too. I'm not talking to a brick wall. But it's also cathartic for me to just do it for myself, to just release it. And I had one of those days the other week, and it was one of that key day. It was around that, was it the 17th or 18th, when everything was changing. And I'm in Aries, so the nodes are affecting me big time as well. And I just went down, and I went, you know what, I'm not going to fight this today. I'm just going to pull out my blanket, and I'm going to watch Netflix, give myself the space, be in my wallowness. And luckily, so Carly, I think you guys have talked with as well, as my soul sister, and we were both in the same, we're very much aligned a lot, and we were both in the same space, and we were able to just voice memo each other. Woe is me. And just sit in it. And you know what, I have so much gratitude at the end of the week that I gave myself that space to just sit in it. Because sometimes I see a lot of people who sit in avoidance and try and avoid that, or avoid feelings. Only prolongs it, guys.
I know,
avoidance, just means, okay, well, maybe she needs to hear it again.
And a bit louder next time.
That's so true.
It's the process of going with the flow is exactly that too, isn't it? Because it's not always a positive space. Sometimes it needs to be just that, like
a nurturing space.
Calm, disconnect, heal, replenish, step back out again. Go with the flow.
And it's easier said than done. I get that. Some people are like, it's not that easy to just, because you've got to trust, you've got to surrender, you've got to take the risk. There's so many components to it.
That's so true.
Amazing.
So
Kobi.
beautiful.
Like it's just, I from listening to you from the beginning of to now, like how you talk about yourself from the beginning to the end, talk of yourself and to yourself. It's just like you're really just sitting in your power so beautifully.
It's really
thank you for helping me recognize that today. I was really like, oh wow, okay, thank you.
Oh, it's been so beautiful having you on. Thank you so much for coming in,
and thank you for having me and holding this beautiful space.
We'll put all of Kobi's links at the bottom of the podcast. And
so
stay
excited
tuned
for what you're bringing through into the world.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you for listening, and remember, all links to our guest are in the notes. Leave us some comment here or message us on Instagram how our guest today connected with you, or perhaps something you wish to share. A special thank you to the blissful Ksenia Luki for our theme song. Joe and I will be with you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.
She teaches me lessons, and boy does she sing. Her voice sways like a hummingbird, flies like a shooting star. She whispers, you were never born, so you will never